Right, good afternoon for those on the East Coast and good morning for those joining us on the West Coast. Thanks for joining our webinar on vine insights. My name is Tristan Stevenson. I run StevTech, a agricultural drone business based in Central West New South Wales. On the panel we have John and Sarah from Stratus Imaging. They're based over in Western Australia, and Yoav, who is from Aerobotics, and he's based in Sydney. The purpose of today's webinar is to describe Yoav's platform, Aerobotics platform, and from our perspective, this will be our third season using the Aerobotics platform, and we've seen it. The reason we got into it in the first place was because we recognised that it was world leading in terms of what it was able to provide Australian growers, and in that sort of last two and a half seasons, we've seen it improve dramatically from what was an excellent platform to what is now, I think, in my opinion at least, a world leading platform for vineyards and for tree crops in general. And that's sort of what we do at StevTech. We look across the globe and try and figure out what the best, most suitable high technology solutions are for Australian farmers, and then bring them to vet them and bring them to Australian farmers in a simple and accessible way. And so that's why we got involved with Aerobotics, because we realised they were leading the market in terms of analytics for vines and for trees. But without further ado, I'll introduce Yoav. He's based in Sydney, as I said. He's the Australian guy on the ground for Aerobotics, and he is going to be presenting vine insights from Aerobotics for the Australian audience. Thanks, Yoav.
Thank you very much, Tristan, for the intro, and welcome everyone to this webinar. Thank you very much for your time. Highly appreciate that. Before I kickstart, I would like to show you a short 3 minutes video that we have created with one of our customers that I think summarizes really nicely the tools that we offer. Just give me a few seconds to put that up. Okay. Okay, hopefully it comes up now, and after the video ends, I will start the presentation. So please turn on your volume so that you can hear the sound.
So yes, from fairly early on in Aerobotics life, we've been involved in different levels and working together to iron out any issues and problems, and also just making suggestions on what we see here and what we can contribute to the platform. Yeah, and I could see right from the start the ideas they had were just next level. There's obviously some teething issues like any new company, and it's good to see the level they're operating at now in Aerobotics is just, personally, I think there isn't anyone else close to what Aerobotics is doing. So it's very, very beneficial for us to be associated with it. With the soil mapping, we're doing a lot of ground truthing work around soil chemistry in the topsoil. So we take that whole environment and we identify exactly what's happening there. The Aerobotics system that comes over the top of that identifies what the response in those trees are. And in a lot of cases it is to do with our soil chemistry, but there's often cases where it's not as well. And having that ability to quantify per tree data through Aerobotics and identifying those trees that are not performing is invaluable. And what I see in Australia, it's not yet being realized how valuable this is as a management tool. Our labor component is exceptionally expensive. To get a totally unskilled worker and I'm talking someone that doesn't drive, doesn't do anything but has to be supervised worker, is about 30 Australian dollars an hour. So to save any labor in Australia is very valuable. We've got growers just using the tree volumes to do planning for their pruning cycles that they've got to do. We're working currently on other growers to use those tree volumes to alter our spray rates on the trees for chemical sprays. In Australia, there's a big drive to be environmentally sensitive, and there's a lot of pressure on growers to not spray too much and to be actually quantifying what they're putting out as chemicals on the orchard. And there again, Aerobotics is a really good tool to use and quantify those values to justify what the growers are doing. The Aerobotics drone scene, there's been and there are numerous drone companies in Australia doing a lot of work all the time. What's lacking that I see in nearly all of them is the practical application of their data. They're very quick to produce maps and all those type of things, but the link into the practical and closing that loop with the grower in using that data is lacking. Aerobotics, personally, I think compared to most drone companies and even platforms in Australia as a management tool, they're miles ahead, really miles ahead.
Awesome. That was Yanis Erasmus at Grid Farm. That he's our customer for many years, and he uses those tools to support his to assist his growers. I will now share my screen again and start the presentation. I think the key message from Yanis's video, as far as I'm concerned, is the practical application of the data, and this is what we do at Aerobotics. We aim to not to provide pretty pictures to put in your office, but rather to really get meaningful and actionable information about your crop performance, vineyard performance, so that we detect something, we go to the orchard with you, or you go without us. You take action, then we refly, and we measure the changes over time. I hope that my screen is up again and you can see the presentation. In the next 20 to 25 minutes, I will show you a few of the tools and products that we offer for vineyards. This is by no means not all the tools that we have. At the sake of the time, I decided to focus on a few, but feel free to first of all use the Q&A box that you should have on the bottom of your screen to ask any question throughout the presentation, and we will address them at the end. But also feel free to reach out to me, to Jonathan, or to Tristan at the end of this session, so that we can set up a more personal meeting and chat some of the challenges that you might have on your property, and assess whether those tools can potentially help you with your production. So this is a sort of a quick overview about the company and what we do and where we are. Company founded in 2014 in Cape Town, South Africa, by a citrus grower. And since then, we have expanded very nicely. We are now active and operating in 18 countries, mainly South Africa, the USA, Latin America, Europe, and Australia. We have to date more than 250 active hectares, and we have processed more than 150 million trees and vines to date. And for our yield citrus products, specific products for citrus, we have detected and sized more than 100 million pieces of citrus fruit. Growers, agronomists, farm managers, investors like yourself use our tools to detect the variation in the orchard and to explain this by look at the irrigation uniformity, soil variability, pest and disease pressure, and nutrition. And over here on the right, you can see a short testimonial by one of our Aussie wine grape growers in central New South Wales, CISO Wine, where Brendan and his team they use our health zonal map to update their prescription and apply variable rate corrections to the low areas in their vineyards to make sure that their vineyards are as homogeneous as possible. This is just one use case. In the next few slides, you can see how this is actually being done. As mentioned, we don't have heaps of time today, so I will focus on only a few tools that we offer. The first one is the crop performance measurement. So we use a multispectral sensors that measures the reflectance from the canopy, basically the greenness of the canopy or the ability of your canopies to photosynthesis. Which is in some cases related to a nutritional issue or disease or any other stress. I will also touch on the irrigation distribution uniformity tool, which is our newly developed tool that so far we're getting pretty good traction and feedback with this tool, and also how our in-field app could help you with crop assessment and to make sure that you maximize your production by targeted specific areas in your blocks or in your vineyards. This is how the entire season looks like with the Aerobotics tools. We start off early in the season, we scan your farm, we identify issues, we provide you a sort of a task list of all the issues that we have found, from the most severe one to the least one. We provide you with recommendations and action to be taken based on those. Then you go to your vineyard. Sometimes we go with you and we assess that. We do root audits, or we check the irrigation pressure, or we take soil and leaf samples, whatever is needed, and we take action. After you've taken an action, same as described for the CISO example, we remap the orchard so that we can track and monitor changes over time. And this is a crucial point, because if you see that you're not going to take action based on the insights here, you probably shouldn't waste your money on this product, because again, if you can't do anything about the variation that has been found, it's probably better to allocate your resources elsewhere. But if action is being taken, very important to remap, to fly over again, to track those changes. And again, the end goal, as mentioned before, optimize yield, decrease vineyard the variation throughout your property, and to obviously improve the irrigation uniformity to get the highest return on investment on your crop. This is how the entire pipeline works, and I divided it to wine grapes and between wine grapes and table grapes, because for the wine grapes we will provide information as you see here. So we collect the data, we get those geo-referenced maps, and the entire technology sits here is how we get from raw data into a meaningful and actionable maps. And for wine grapes, we provide information to the vine level. So each vine gets a health value, a canopy volume, area volume, as well as irrigation stress index to the vine level. For table grapes, we kind of got the feedback from the ground that usually action is being taken on a zonal level. And because of the way the crop is being grown as well, it's maybe less practical or less relevant to provide this per vine information. So for the vine level, for table grapes, we pretty much provide the same, but without this step here of looking at each and every vine, but rather look at a more like a zonal level. And again, I will explain in the next few slides, and I will show you a few wine grape examples as well as table grapes, and you could see the difference. At the end of this process, this zonal map could be used for in-field scouting exercise that can be done from here. So you get this map and you can generate a scout route for your irrigation manager or quality assessment team, and they get into their phone. They work with their phone in the vineyard between the different zones, like Google Map. They can record everything that is been found on the app. They can take photos, they can write notes, and everything is being saved on the phone offline. Once they go back to the office, they sync the app and all the information is being pulled from their phone to the cloud, so that you have visibility and anyone with access to the platform have visibility to what has been found in the vineyard. Just another few examples of the different data layers that we provide over here. We see this is the high resolution RGB imagery that we generate from the drone flight, and it's a nice picture to have, but it's not very actionable and doesn't tell us much about what's going on in the orchard. What we see here is the multispectral health map on a flat layer, whereby we can see in these vineyards that there are some areas with high health or high vine vigor compared to different areas with low. And another layer that we provide is the elevation maps. So basically, it's a relative map that shows you the elevation within your block, and with the lowest areas here and the highest areas here. And it really helps us in some cases to explain the variability that is found. Obviously, elevation, drainage are things that factors that dramatically affect the performance of your crop. Another way to look at the information is on a zonal level, and as mentioned, this zonal level is available for both wine and table grapes. So in this specific block, we have managed to identify quite a significant variation in health on a zonal level. We can see that the southern western end is underperforming compared to the other areas. We thought that it's quite likely to be irrigation related issue, so we have recommended the grower to do irrigation audits and to actually check the drippers, the outputs from the drippers. And this is what the grower has done, and he came back to us with those values, and we overlaid that, and we very nicely showed him that the variation that was found from the drone imagery is correlated to what he found from the drippers. And the area here on the southern end is the area that underperform in terms of irrigation pressure. And what he has done afterwards is to flush clean his drippers, and potentially I think he also increased the pressure in this section here. And this is a really great example of how we measure variability. The grower takes action and fix the issue, so that we really close the loop on any given risk that we find. Another way to go about that, given that the irrigation was found to be nice and uniform, we can also overlay, as Yanis mentioned on the video, we can also overlay soil maps, so that we look at soil health on one side and vine health on the other side. And once you look at those two together, in some cases, again, you can explain the variation that we find from the drone imagery. Next slide. This is a wine grape example. This is a Merlot block in South Africa. Over here, you see the pear vine health analytics. So this type of maps is relevant and available for wine grapes. And this type of map, this is how it will be seen on the table grape property, where the information is being provided to the zonal level. And we flew late in the season, in January, phenolic ripening, so quite late in the season. And what we found is an area that is way underperforming in terms of, again, chlorophyll content and the reflectance that we measure with the multispectral sensor, as can be seen here. And it was obviously very present on the zonal level as well. And the fact that we have this per vine analytics allows us to actually look at the distribution of the index, and we can select the bars that occupy all the vines with the low health. And I don't know if you can see, but what it does, it filters out all the other vines, so that we only look at those underperforming vines. But also it quantifies. I don't know if you can see the number of trees here. So out of 14,751 vines in this block, 3,387 vines are underperforming, again, based on what we have selected here. That's a good 20 or 25% of this block is underperforming. So that allowed us to first identify and then to quantify and to justify for the grower that it's quite necessary to go and check this block. What the grower did here, so she did a in-field soil moisture assessment investigation, and she found that this area, because of elevation, this area have received less irrigation. So she fixed that, but by adjusting the valve pressure, and that was in Jan. And then we did a follow-up flight again to measure the changes post-harvest in March. And you can see very nicely the differences between the variation that were found pre-action and post-action. And that was for her a sort of a proof of concept that whatever she did and the adjustment to the irrigation system definitely worked, and definitely this vineyard is more uniform. Again, as mentioned, if you have any questions, feel free to type them down, and we will address them at the end of this presentation. Now I want to touch a little bit about our newly developed irrigation distribution uniformity tool. So basically, in the past few years, we've been inundated with the request to provide same type of product like we provide in terms of health and canopy vigor and canopy volume, but with something that is more focused on irrigation because of known reason, water budgets and allocations and drought. These are some of the key challenges that we unfortunately have here in Australia and elsewhere. So we decided to develop this product. R&D phase took 18 months in different parts of the world, as well as here in Australia. And the concept of this tool is quite similar to what we've been doing so far, but we now use a sensor with an additional thermal band, which enables us to measure the temperatures from the canopies, the temperatures of the vines, so not the soil, the actual canopies. And this is a well-known technique in literature that usually the temperature of the vines is linked to the water stress or the water availability of the plant. A tree or a vine that is water stress is likely to shut down, to stop photosynthesis, and therefore to be warmer compared to a tree that is nicely transpire and would be cooler. So we use this approach to measure the temperatures. We calibrate each and every vine size and volume so that the information that we provide is very accurate to the actual vine, to the actual zone. And we also calibrate with the ambient temperatures. Obviously, it took us 18 months with lots of feedback from the ground, from the growers, to get this one right. And at the end of this process, the tool that you see on your side is either for wine grape, a pear vine transpiration map, or on the table grape side, a pear zone transpiration map. And I will show you different examples of how it looks on the platform. This tool helps dramatically to growers to first identify the most representative locations to allocate any IoT devices, single spot devices like soil probes, tree dendrometers or subflows and others. obviously to identify some hyper-localized issues such as leaks, blocks, irrigation pressure, and more, and also to basically allocate your resources in a better way. This is a citrus block, but just really good example of how this tool helped this specific grower. This is a citrus block, and this is where the moisture probe was allocated. And the block looks fairly uniform as far as I'm concerned, at least. Maybe this area here looks a bit lighter, but when we fly with the transpiration product, this is the image that we have received. So midsection, green dots represent trees with a high transpiration rate, so low water stress. And on the western end, the orange trees, and specifically on the eastern side, these are stress trees because of the temperatures, or because of highly likely irrigation issue. A grower was quite surprised, but first of all, we decided to allocate the probe here and not here. But grower was quite surprised. So what he did with my colleague is to go to this block and to measure the outputs from the drippers. This block goes west to east in terms of valve, one valve western end, midsection, and third valve on the eastern end. The submain is here at the middle. So these are the results from the outputs that they have measured in the drippers. And you can see that the midsection performs well with irrigation within the benchmark as far as the grower is concerned, with about 2.2, 2.1 liters per hour per dripper. On the western end, there was definitely some variation, but not as significant as what was found on the eastern side, where you can see that the irrigation and the water that the grower thought that he irrigates were much lower, and this area was under heavy irrigation stress. This example here is a table grape. It's a scarlet royal block, and as you can see, we did a first flight in the fruit set growth stage, and you can see that the block is healthy and uniform throughout. Second flight took place on the horizon in about August, and you can see that areas of suboptimal health started to show up. You can see this area here and this area here and also here. And what happened next, some action was taken post-harvest to check the soil and the leaf assessment, and some irrigation related anomalies were detected in this block. And again, this is a good example of how this tool enables you to understand better what areas you need to scout, because if you didn't have this multispectral layer, you couldn't know that this area here is underperforming compared to the others. But obviously, more than that, what we have found in this block that when we use the transpiration tool, that there is a high variation within the transpiration across this block. And it's very nice to see, if you look at the health map and the transpiration map side by side, and again, this is a table grape block, to see how the low health correlates very nicely with the low transpiration in this section here. And again, it's just to showcase you how those tools are being used, and how something that you can't really see with your naked eyes suddenly appears with the multispectral as well as with the new irrigation tool. And that again really helps the grower to go and rectify and to ensure all the issues are solved before the start of the next season. That's another example from table grape. Over here, we see a zonal approach to assess the soil health as well as the crop load and crop performance in this specific table grape block. Investigations were taken based on the health zones that we can see here, and fruit and crop load were measured or were assessed in the green area, the good or the healthy area, and the red areas. As you can see, I hope that you can see the differences here in those bunches, but the vines in the red area were not growing as optimal as the grower would have expected. And what he has decided to do is to thin the fruit on the red areas to basically make the bunch smaller or shorter with less grape on them. As opposed to the green areas where bunches were fine and fruit was good and high quality, as ready to be exported, I guess, in terms of the quality. So yeah, in an essence, having less grapes in some areas in this block, but more exportable fruit in the vineyard overall. And on the left-hand side, you can see here the differences between the previous season, where this exercise did not take place, with about 78,000 exported cartons, compared to this season that ended now, with more than 90,000 cartons that being exported. And again, the idea here is to get as much return on investment on in your operation, and this zonal health approach really helped this grower to understand where his fruit performance might be compromised due to some reasons, and how this can be fixed quite late in the season, by the way, as well. On the right-hand side here, we see a different block, but on the same table grape property. We conducted post-harvest root audits just to measure the different soil structure, to check the soil structure and soil types in those different health zones. And as you can see, we managed to found that there is different soil types indeed in this specific block, and that really helped the grower to understand what cover crop to sow in the off season, post-harvest for the next season. Also, the grower here decided to place a few soil probes, again based on the different soil types that have been found or have been assessed during this scout route. Just before I quickly touch on pricing, this is a citrus block, but really good example that again showcase how this tool can be used, and what the negative impact that could be if you don't use this tool. So this is a citrus block mid-season in the northern hemisphere. We flew with the transpiration rate, and we can see that the northern part is under stressed compared to the southern part. So one block, but two different valve. We see a significant lower transpiration, and more than 50% are underperforming in terms of tree health. So what was done here, the grower went to the orchard, and he measured the fruit size, as well as any visual quality fruit issues. And he has found a high sunburn in the northern section, in the stressed valve, stress trees valve, compared to the southern one. Also, fruit size was much smaller in the stress trees, with 50 mils on average. That was mid-season, compared to 57 on the southern end. And again, this is the same block with same variety and same everything. Further to that, we conducted a yield flight. This is a tool that we offer specifically for citrus, where we measure using drone imagery. We measure the size of the fruit, and we predict what size you're going to pick and what volumes. And we can see that we predicted indeed that the size of the fruit that's going to be picked in the northern part is going to be on average pick 72, which is a smaller fruit size compared to the size that we predicted to be picked on the southern end. So this fruit is is 2 times better in terms of quality. And same for the volumes. We predicted that the northern part would produce about 33 tons to the hectare compared to 43. And that's a big difference, that it's highly related to this irrigation anomaly that we have detected. And this comes to show that it might be too late for this season, but given that we fly early in the season, and obviously it's applicable for table grapes and for wine grapes and for any crop, we can adjust some of those measures, and we can hopefully fix those issues to get the most out of this block. The revenue potential in this block is about 40,000 Aussie dollars to the hectare, but the expected one, again, given this variation that has been detected, is only $34,000. And that's pretty much it. There is 2 slides here about pricing. Again, happy to send it over to you afterwards if you're interested. But because the information in wine grapes is provided to the tree level, it's more machine hours to annotate those vines, and that's why we divided the pricing structure between wine grapes, as you can see here. And the next slide would be table grapes, which is a little bit more cost effective because, again, we don't get to the resolution of the vine level. And in both packages, obviously, the effective price per hectare reduces as you go bigger, and we have option for just once off a flight, but we highly recommend to fly at least 2 or 3 times a season. That was sort of it in a nutshell. And yeah, happy to take any questions. I will hand it over now to Jonathan to see if you guys have any questions. So thank you very much for tuning in today, and yeah, appreciate your questions.
Thanks, Yoav. That was quite interesting, the technology and how Aerobotics is working in the vineyard. So we've got some questions. The first one we've got is, can you use remote sensing for table grapes when covered? And I'll direct that to Yoav if I can. Yeah, no,
thanks, Jonathan. That's a really good question. Unfortunately, we can't map crop under plastic. We can under nets, but in table grapes in Australia, most of the crop is being covered on the last part of the season to protect the fruit. And when the crop is covered, we can't fly it anymore because of the plastic, obviously. So usually what we do, if for wine grapes, we recommend to fly at fruit set, veraison, and post-harvest. For table grapes, we recommend to do the same, but we basically push everything a little bit earlier so that the last flight is before you cover your crops. In some cases, if the grower says that it doesn't think that the crop or the canopies are heavily damaged when he removes the plastic, we can then conduct a post-harvest flight for table grapes as well. But again, it depends on the practices on the farm.
Thanks, Yoav. The next question that we've got is around what equipment is actually required to conduct that service. And I'll direct that to Tristan.
Yeah, thanks, John. I think this came from a drone operator, so I'll be fairly specific. So for all of the products that, for the entire products that Yoav mentioned there, you require a multispectral sensor with a thermal band, so the MicroSense Ultim, and a high-resolution RGB camera, so you can take visual images as well as all of the multispectral images and a thermal band, so that you can get that irrigation monitoring tool as well. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Tristan. The next question we have is, which scale is the detection of water stress on? And I'll pass that one back to Yoav.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, I think it was mentioned in the presentation. So on the wine grapes, we detect that to the vine level, and on the table grape side of things, we detect that on a zonal level.
Thanks, Yoav. The last question I've actually got in Q&A, and if anyone has got any other questions that they do want to ask, please put them in there and we'll continue answering those. But the question I've got here is, do you use existing plant indices such as NDVI to make these assessments, or do you have a more customized approach? And I'll pass that to Yoav.
Yeah, we use those well-known indices such as NDVI, NDRE, as well as other models and indices that we have developed in-house, which are, by the way, crop type specific.
Okay, thanks for that, Yoav, and thanks, Tristan, for your answers. Just before we finish off, there was another question that we did have around pricing. It was mentioned by Yoav just before. So what I'll do is I'll get Yoav to put that back up on the screen for us, and I'll pass over to Tristan to outline to us what the special that we're providing for all of our attendees, and to close off the session. Thanks, Tristan.
Yeah, thanks, John. And I probably should have mentioned this up front because I saw that one or two people dropped off in the session towards the end. But there is a promo offer for people that have attended this webinar. So if you've registered and attended the webinar, then you sign up in the month of September. So this month, for 50 hectares or more for this summer season coming, there'll be a 10% discount. Prices there on could be discounted by 10% if you sign up this month in the month of September. That's the promo deal. Thank you for your attendance at the webinar. Yeah, thanks Yoav, thanks John for participating in the webinar, and thanks everyone for coming along and having a listen. I hope that's been informative for you, and as John mentioned, feel free to take down our details. Yoav, if you want to go to the next screen, take down our details here. And if you're in sort of Western Australia, you can talk to either Yoav or Andrew or John. And if you're in the eastern side of Australia, then talk to Yoav or myself, and we can answer any additional questions you have. We'll set up a face-to-face, virtual at least, meeting where we can take you through the platform live and do a whole bunch of other stuff. So feel free to reach out any questions you have, and we're more than happy to have conversations with you in the lead up to this growing season. So once again, thanks for your attendance, and thanks for the guys who presented, and we'll end the webinar there. Thanks very much.
Sorry, Tristan, just before we do end the webinar, we have had another question come through from Jeff, who's asked, can you use any other multispectral sensors that are not a MicaSense?
I think I'll have to push to Yoav to make sure I'm telling the truth here, but I think it's just MicaSense at this stage that's integrated. Is that right, Yoav?
Yeah, first of all, just to reiterate on the promotion, because I couldn't hear you very well. I'm not sure about the other attendees, but what we offer is a 10% discount for any deals signed before the end of this month, September, for any deals for 50 hectares or more. And as per the question, yes, we mainly use the MicaSense sensor. In some cases, we have tested some other sensors, but in order to provide consistent and accurate results, we rather stick to one sensor so that the information that we get from one flight to the other one, or from one season to the other season, is actually comparable. That's why we took a decision to stick to one sensor, with not one sensor, but one provider, one company, which is MicaSense. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that, Yoav, and yeah, thank you to Tristan and Yoav for their input today. And as mentioned, any questions that anyone's got, please feel free to reach out to Tristan and Yoav on the eastern states, and on the western side of Australia, Andrew and myself at Stratus Imaging. So thank you, everyone, and look forward to speaking with you soon.